Hi, I'm Jenny with The Forest Daisy. In this video, I'm going to show you some wreaths that I made for fall. Please subscribe to my channel for more crafting, home decor, and DIYs. I got a pumpkin wreath frame and some tinsel stems from Dollar Tree. I was gifted this orange deco mesh and I folded the end into quarters so I could tuck it behind part of the frame and then used one of those tinsel stems to attach it. I gathered the mesh and lined it up along the first section of the pumpkin and tied that end to the frame as well, then repeated the steps going in the opposite direction along the next section and repeated that process until it was completely covered. When I got to the end, I cut the mesh and tied the end piece into one of the tinsel stems and put it behind the frame. I also cut the excess pieces of tinsel off so they weren't sticking out. And since the mesh kind of covered the stem part on the wreath frame, I took a piece of cardboard that I was using for crafting projects and cut it into the shape of a stem that would be noticeable enough on the wreath, and I wrapped some brown burlap ribbon around it and glued two halves of a tinsel stem on the back and tied the stem to the frame. I got this ribbon at a garage sale, but it is Kirkland brand. I made a bow to tie around the stem, and I thought the gold in the ribbon matched the shimmer in the deco mesh on the pumpkin. This wreath has more spooky vibes rather than fall, but I will keep this up year round. This vine wreath had fake greenery on it that I used for something else, but I used my wire cutters to cut through the vines and removed a small section off of the side. There was a wire inside and I pulled it out, but realized that that was a mistake, so I had to push it back into the wreath to keep it stable. Then I pinched the ends of the wreath to make them pointed, and I wrapped the little vine wire that was already on the wreath around the ends so they would stay in place. I picked some flowers that I grew over the summer, as well as some fern and clover in my backyard, and air dried those. I didn't lay the ferns flat when I dried them, so they did curl up on the ends, but it still worked for this. I started attaching the pieces of fern to the wreath by tying floral wire around. I continued adding ferns, and once I got to the halfway point, I changed the direction that they were facing so it would flow with the shape of the wreath. Then I started placing the dried flowers, and I found a feather outside of my house that I added in the middle, and I trimmed the floral wire from the back and reused the original hanger. This witch hat came from Dollar Tree, and I removed all of the tinsel from the frame. You could reuse that for something else, but once I got that removed, I used my wire cutters to remove all of those plastic pieces that the tinsel was attached to. I glued the end of some burlap around the side of the frame and then wrapped it all the way up to the top and then cut the end off and glued that at the top of the hat. I had some rolls of deco mesh from Dollar Tree and cut each color at 6 inches to make mesh bundles. I used one piece from each roll for a bundle and ended up with 12 bundles altogether. I scrunched up a piece of mesh and pinched it between my fingers. I did that for each piece and layered them on top of each other, then used half of a tinsel stem to tie the bundle together, and then I attached the first bundle in the corner of the brim of the hat and kept adding the other bundles across the brim. I cut some random pieces of burlap ribbon that I had and glued those randomly onto the hat so it looked like how a scarecrow hat would be stitched. And I also put some fake leaves into the mesh, and I made a hanger by twisting the end of a tinsel stem and glued that on the back of the hat and covered it with some burlap ribbon so that it wouldn't fall off. This wreath was really simple. Dollar Tree has some small wire wreath frames, and I wrapped one with loose weave burlap I got from Craft Outlet. Then I glued some daisies and sunflowers that are also from Dollar Tree. I alternated the colors around the wreath and then used some ribbon for the hanger. Lastly, I got this fine pumpkin wreath from Hobby Lobby last year and wanted to just add something to it. I made a bow out of some Craft Outlet fall ribbon. I tied it together with jute string and kept the ends of the string long enough so I could tie it to the wreath. I cut a dovetail shape in the ends of the ribbon, and then I glued a fake piece of hydrangea in the center of the ribbon. Thank you so much for watching.